As waves crash against the hull of the Santa Maria, the scent of salt, carried inland by a fresh ocean wind, fills the nostrils and the imagination of a young Christopher Columbus, who gazes out across the glittering Mediterranean and begins to dream. This is the opening moment of Columbus, Golden Dawn, a 1992 JRPG offering a pseudo-historical narrative wrapped up in a surprisingly open-ended, though monotonous world. In this game, players step into the role of the young Christopher Columbus as he prepares for his famous, or infamous, trans-Atlantic journey. Ironically, the journey across the ocean takes up only a sliver of the total playtime. The vast majority of the game focuses on preparation.
By the way, this video was made possible by my supporters on Patreon. Jin Khan, Stan Rogers, Elise Pullen, Tomio, Gleist Music, High Food Court. This video is for you.
The developers of this game either never read a history book or deliberately chose to tell a highly mythologized version of the Columbus story. The old-school, romanticized version of Columbus, a heroic underdog defying the odds on a noble quest for discovery. The core gameplay loop involves sailing the seas and exploring the world map. To access better ships, the player must recruit more crew members, raise their fame, and obtain the King's Charter by sailing around, visiting European cities, and enrolling in their naval academies. In the naval academies, Columbus studies the voyages of past explorers and uses his imagination to simulate the sailing missions that he reads about. Successfully completing these missions increases the ship's level and unlocks better vessels, which grants access to other ports and more academies. These simulations are not cutscenes. They serve as practical training for the player, testing our ability to navigate from one port to another without getting lost or shipwrecked. And this is important because if you get blown off course by a real storm outside of the simulations, the rough weather can hurtle you hopelessly across the ocean, potentially soft-locking your game and forcing you to reload or completely restart. When a storm hits, the game shifts to a tighter, action-based view of the ship, where the player needs to dodge vortices and flotsam. If you do avoid them, you resume where you left off once the storm clears, and then continue on your way. Pirate encounters work much in the same way. Enemy ships then attempt to encircle and bombard you with cannonballs. If you survive and get close enough, you can grapple and board them, initiating a turn-based battle. Sailing, recruiting, and training form the heart of the game's progression. However, none of this is particularly easy or obvious. Crew members need constant training, but will mutiny if overworked. In the menu, a mutiny meter warns you of the crew's morale. Let it rise too high, and a revolt breaks out, forcing you into battle against your own men. Combat is turn-based, with gridless, free movement across the screen. Columbus must close the distance between himself and enemies to strike with melee weapons or strike from afar with long-distance weapons. He can also move around to retreat or avoid damage. Escaping battle involves moving to the edge of the screen and walking off. Enemies include pirates, giant fish, jellyfish, mythological creatures, and even hostile natives who blow feather darts at you. Your crew members will fight with you, but recruitment is often a frustrating part of this game. Sailors are recruited through talking, bribing, or flattery, but many NPCs refuse to join unless your fame or ship level is high enough. The way all of this works is not exactly transparent. Other NPCs might challenge you to a duel, and defeating them can earn you gold or hidden information. Unfortunately, the towns and cities across the map share nearly identical visual styles. Still, the explorable world is vast, covering Europe, North Africa, the British Isles, Eastern Europe, Anatolia, and later islands of the New World, the legendary Atlantis, and the mythical city of Neptune. Some of these spaces have locked city gates, which can only be opened by investigating the game's many cryptic secrets, like talking to certain tombstones that can whisper to you. 3 crucial items guide your quest: Marco Polo's book, the mysterious journal, and the scarab. Marco Polo's book is found at the tombstone in Genoa, and it always tells you your next objective. The journal, located inside a barrel on Columbus's first ship, reveals hidden lore and hints, while the scarab, which can be found with the help of the journal and found in a cave southwest of Kiev, is essential for crossing the Atlantic and finding Atlantis. At the title screen, the game offers 3 modes: normal, history, and sailing. Though they appear different, gameplay is largely the same between the first two. History mode simply includes a calendar starting in December 1465, which functions as a hard time limit. If you don't board the Santa Maria by June 1466, or cross the Atlantic by 1492, it's game over. There's also sailing mode, which serves as a sailing practice simulator. By choosing history mode, the game begins with Columbus waking up in his home in Genoa. Outside, he's struck with inspiration upon seeing the Santa Maria at the docks. After searching his tombstone nearby and finding Marco Polo's book, we make our way onto the ship and grind until level 2, which Marco Polo's book specifically tells us to do. On deck, we're attacked by jellyfish, pirates, and ghosts, while barrels contain useful items like potions and knives. One of the barrels holds a journal, telling us to go find a girl named Philippa in Granada and give her a gold ring. Upon reaching level 2, another sailor tells us that he's retiring and hands Columbus rein of the ship. Then he advises him to study at the Naval Academy in Lisbon. Immediately, the player is transported there. In Lisbon, we complete an imaginary voyage at the Naval Academy and then graduate. Marco Polo's book now provides our next directive: raise our fame and visit the king. From here, the player is free to explore the Mediterranean, recruiting sailors, discovering secrets, and leveling up the ship. You can even find buried treasure on small islands, some of which are inhabited by natives, who are simply there to be fought and killed. Later, we receive a gold ring from an old man standing at a tombstone. We present the ring to Philippa in Granada. She accepts, marries Columbus, and the journal updates with more cryptic instructions involving certain statues to interact with in certain towns. That's essentially the gameplay loop. Raise your stats, uncover secrets, improve your ship, and earn the right to sail west. Yeah, it gets repetitive. And yes, the game has aged poorly in many respects. But we've got to give credit where it's due. The sense of freedom is real. The abundance of optional content, like dungeons filled with zombies or islands with lost civilizations, does create an illusion of open-endedness that must have been remarkable for the time. And to be honest, it's still kind of impressive today. Eventually, with the best ship and a worthy crew, the king finally permits Columbus to sail west in search of Japan. He calls you a fool at first if you're underleveled, claiming that the ocean ends in a waterfall. But if you persist, studying, sailing, and grinding, the king relents and gives you the charter. The crossing is the game's final trial, a long voyage filled with pirates, storms, mutinies, and the ever-present danger of getting lost. But if you endure, you'll eventually see land. Jade green hills emerge above the sunlit waves. It's Japan, he thinks. Emphasis being on he thinks. But instead of landing, Columbus immediately turns back. Somehow, word reaches Europe before he does. Everyone's there waiting for us and celebrating our discovery of what turns out not to be Japan. And this is how the game ends, with the entirety of Europe rejoicing, Columbus triumphant, and the new world claimed in the name of Christendom. And everybody lives happily ever after. Columbus Golden Dawn was released in 1992, the year after I was born. A few years later, I'd be learning songs at school about Columbus, songs that told the same story that this game tells, that he was brave, that he was ambitious, and that he mattered because he discovered something. It's interesting how easily we build up and maintain our heroes, and then how complicated it can be if people want to let those heroes go. I'm not here to settle the debate about how anybody should or shouldn't feel about Columbus, though I will say that each generation has the right to ask whether its inherited heroes still deserve their pedestals. In this complicated time, when Columbus has become such a divisive figure, I'm reminded of René Girard's theory of the scapegoat. That societies, in periods of guilt or crisis, try to displace their collective shame onto chosen figures, so that by pouring their guilt into them and then condemning them, we can forgive ourselves. The myth of Columbus persists, especially if our world is moving toward another age of exploration, not across oceans but between stars. Our complicated relationship with the Columbus myth is hardly done evolving. One day, will there be an age of space pirates instead of sea pirates? If humanity ever does spread beyond the Earth and possibly finds new life, then I suspect this encounter could be a lot like what happened the last time we pushed across the horizon. After all, our technology changes, but does our human nature change? Despite its mythical perspective, a game like Columbus Golden Dawn does in fact tell us about history. It tells us about how people in 1992 thought about Columbus. After all, the kind of entertainment a society produces always reveals something about its values, its anxieties, and its ideals. Columbus Golden Dawn therefore preserves the myth of Christopher Columbus as it existed at the end of the second millennium. And so, for all the game's weaknesses, it may just be more interesting than ever.